What's up, guys? This is Saiyan here, coming at you with another deck profile. Looking back at another very much fan favorite base Neo deck, Kingdra. So I'm just gonna break down this deck. This is actually my favorite deck. It's very resilient. It's easy to set up. Can attack from many different angles, and I'm just gonna show you guys my version. But I will give a shout out to, of course, the Jason Klasinski blog, and I will also give a shout out to Tricky Jim. He's actually profiled this deck a couple of years ago, which kind of made me fall in love with this deck, to be honest. And there's a couple of iterations. There's really not much that I've changed because the skeleton of the deck just works really well, but obviously I will kind of point out where it can be adjusted very much to your play group. So to start with the Pokemons, obviously we're running 4 Cleffas. These are the new 25th Celebration foil Cleffas. They are absolutely beautiful. I had to pick these up. Pick up your Cleffas whilst they are cheap. They're an absolute staple for the base Neo format. Cleffa, I mean, what's there to be said that hasn't been said yet? For a colorless, you shuffle your hand back into your deck, you draw 7 cards. It's also an extremely good defensive Pokemon because it's a baby Pokemon. It has the baby power, and it's got no weakness, no resistance, and no retreat cost, very importantly. And of course, in the base Neo format, you can retreat as many times as you want. You are absolutely not bound by the current modern set rules, where I think you can only retreat once per turn. So you can retreat as many times as you want. Cleffa is the alpha and the omega of this deck, but you really only just want to see one of this little squishy fella in your opening hand. Any additional ones are usually discardable to item finder or computer search. So these are 4 staple basics. Of course, they have to be in pretty much any deck, but yeah, we definitely have 4 of these here in our Kingdra deck. Then move on to the obviously the main part of the deck. 4 Horsies, 4 Seadras, and 4 Kingdras. So, why these Pokemon specifically? Well, we obviously want to get to Kingdra, and the main reason why we're running the Kingdra is because of that one colorless energy attack called Genetic Memory. The genetic memory allows us to copy any of the previous evolution attacks, and usually our main attack will be Mud Splash, which is normally a 2 water energy attack, deals 30 damage, and on a coin flip you can also potentially hit one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for 10. So it's got that Baby Snipe ability, which is extremely important in base Neo. We can technically also try and bubble if we want to stall, if we want to try and paralyze, but Mud Splash is what realistically we're trying to do. And so you're wondering, well, why aren't we doing that with Seadra? Why are we doing that with Kingdra? Because it's a colorless. Colorless meaning we can use our recycle energy. Colorless meaning we can, immediately attack after being energy removaled. And also this guy doesn't have any weakness to electric, which Horsey and Seadra do. And we get also a lovely 90 HP health on the Kingdras. The Horsey, realistically, I mean, we can run any Horsies. If you guys do run the Japanese vending machine translated cards, then that Horsey is also a viable option in my opinion. It can definitely be used, but what I like about this horse is the 50 HP. And if you have to go out and battle with Horsey and your opponent does give it a slap, then Horsey's gonna swing back with 30 the turn after. And also this Horsey has no retreat cost again, so basically none of our basics have any retreat cost, which is just really good position to start from. in a game, because it doesn't matter which basic you have in your opening hand, you will always be able to switch it for the one you actually want to be your active for the turn. So that's the main lineup. Very resilient Kingdra, but I'm also not hating when I have to just sit on Seedra for a turn or two, as long as I can, feed at least a bubble attack, if nothing else. But obviously, Mud Splash is the main attack in this deck. So how did we do this? Okay, for Horsey, for Seedra, for Kingdra. It's a bit of a shame that these Kingdras, they don't have a foil version unless you obviously get one specifically made. But it's still a very, very beautiful card. Talking of foils though, I do run one copy of Pichu and I run one copy of Magby. I know that quite a few decks tend to run two copies of Pichu, but if you have to start a game with a Pichu, and your opponent doesn't have any Pokemon power, your Pichu's just sitting there not doing anything. And to be fair, on a card to card basis, Magby for me is the winner because first of all, it gives you a whole turn where Pokemon powers are stubbed. You don't have to rely on, like, let's say if Muck is out, you're gonna struggle to play Igglybuff because her Pokemon power is gonna be shut down. Whereas Magby can just come out, always deal that 10 damage, or at least try to deal some shit damage, that's good. And that Spotter is to me a very, very solid attack. But the Pichu can come into its element if you do come up against a deck that runs Pokemon powers. To me, Magby is just kind of a winner, but I do feel that there is at least one slot in this deck for a Pichu, so Pichu's in there. If nothing else, you bench it, it's a free retreat baby. You still get that protection from the Pichu. And these are Pokemon. That's it. 10 basics and 18 Pokemon altogether. Of course, no real surprise here when I say that the deck is predominantly trainer cards. So let's have a look at the trainer cards. First of all, let's look at what helps us to set up besides the Cleffa, because obviously Cleffa, where is Cleffa? Cleffa's our main setup card, naturally. But we also pair it up with 2 Professor Oaks and 2 Professor Elms. To me, they are both good in their own ways. I've tried, like, only running Professor Elms in a deck or only running Professor Oaks in some specific builds. I got a Blaine's Rapidash deck where I was thinking, okay, I just want to see those bills in my hands with fire energy. So rather than running Elm, I might just run the Oaks. I don't know. I always keep going back to actually wanting to see, the variety and having both. And especially in this deck where, as you're gonna see, we can, just buy these cards back from with Item Finder. I think just having this versatility is very good for this deck. So these are additional card draws. If we need to dig for something very specific, we got 3 copies of Computer Search again, pretty much a staple for most decks. You will often see me discard extra Cleffas, or perhaps an extra trainer card, or sometimes I just discard a trainer card that may be a one-off in the deck, but I know I can buy it back with an item finder later, so that's not a problem at all. Talking of item finders, again, we got 3 copies of that bad boy here. Some decks really like to run item finders, sometimes not that much. It is shut down by Pokemon Tower, which is definitely one of my favorite control cards. But with a well-timed counter gym, you can always deal with the Pokemon Tower. So Item Finder just basically allows us to have potentially 3 extra copies of any other trainers in our deck. So obviously, yeah, you gotta discard 2 cards, but you can pick back any trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. So if you If you need that gym back again, you can item finder it. If you need more energy removals, you can item finder it. If you want another oak or another elm, everything, anything. Item finder is just really, really, really versatile. So this is what helps us with the setup: 4 clefas, 4 professors, 3 copies of computer search, and 3 item finders. This is our main setup engine for the deck. In terms of protection, we're running 4 copies of Focus Band. 2 of them are first edition. Look at that. 4 copies of Focus Band because this works with our babies, but it also works really well with our Kingdra. And the reason why it works so well with our Kingdra is because we are running 3 copies of Pokemon Center. And the 3 copies of Pokemon Center are extremely, extremely important for this deck because if we can save any of our guys on a focus band, um, we don't really care much about energies because we're never really going to have more than 1 energy on any of our Pokemon. So if we lose that 1 energy, be it. But as you're going to see later on, obviously we're running recycle energies, but we're also running Energy Stadium. So Pokemon Center, the potential negatives of Pokemon Center will be diminished with the kind of cards that we're using in this deck. So it's just a full up, heal all your guys up, and that can be a very tough pill to swallow to our opponent who might have spent many, many turns struggling to get our Pokemon down to a couple of health points, and then we just go ahead and reset the board. Very frustrating for our opponent. It is a lot of fun for us. Moving on to disruption, we run 3 SERs and 3 ERs, super energy and regular energy removals. You know, I kind of understand why certain people and certain play groups will ban or limit the amount of energy removals in the game, but that's one of the main cards that makes base Neo. There are a lot of cards that allow decks to work around super energy removals. Yes, they are definitely very powerful cards, but I mean, to me, they're just part of the game. I think if I think you can have fun even with all these cards being playable in the set, and just kind of think about when you're building decks. If you want to build a rogue deck, how can you go around super energy removals? You can have a bunch of decks where you can actually just mitigate the impact of an energy removal on your Pokemon. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with these cards. And then further disruption, Lass. Now Lass is a lot more problematic card than energy removals in my opinion, because if your opponent doesn't have any Clefas out and they get last, then that could be a game-winning situation for the person who played last, because you can get your opponent to a point where your opponent's just basically top decking for 1, 2, sometimes 4, 5, sometimes 7, 8 turns if they keep drawing rubbish and they can't get out of that situation they're in. So to me, less is a lot more disruptive in the game than energy removal. But again, you just kind of have to build around it. That's where the Clefas come in. Obviously, that's one of the reasons why the Clefas shine. Is because of last. But the surface, it is a mirror effect. So if those of you who may play Magic the Gathering as well, obviously both of these games are Wizards of the Coast. I mean, base Neo is Wizards of the Coast. Has changed hands multiple times since that era, but this era, I mean, when we're talking about mirror effects, last is like your Howling Mine or other cards that when you can mitigate the symmetric design of the card, then you come out as a winner, and that's exactly what you need to do when you play with last. Just be ready for it, but also be able to play it when the time is right. So 8 disruption cards, and again, we can get any one of these back with item finders. Brilliant stuff. A little bit of a kind of like a switcheroo, double gust, obviously. All our basics have no retreat costs, so a well-timed double gust can, sometimes lead to a double KO. You can pull out something that has, 30 health left, push something back to the bench that only has 10 health left, and with a lucky coin flip of that mud splash attack, you might be able to take 2 prize cards when you double gust. But it's generally just good to get out of special conditions as well. Particularly, you know, well, any of them really. I think sleep is less annoying than some of the other ones. I'm sometimes not too worried to sit out a turn, under a paralysis. Confusion and poison are definitely the ones that you want to kind of avoid, and ideally try and take out the Pokemon that your opponent has that may have caused you to be paralyzed, your active to be paralyzed or poisoned. So double gust again, this is very much a staple in any deck. If it's not double gust, gust to win switch, warp point, you're gonna run at least a few of these cards. So 2 double gust here. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, some decks will certainly need more than 2 copies, but again, as I said, realistically, we're kind of setting up our Kingdra on the bench. We kind of have free range to move around with our basics with no retreat costs. Sorry. Staple, 1 copy of Night the Garbage Run, just kind of like mostly to get Pokemon back in the deck. Really, that's what we want to use it for mainly. Once we do a computer search, or we'll have done perhaps a few Clefas, we might understand what is actually prized. And so if we have a particular lack of uh, you know any one of our main Pokemon, Horsey, Seadra, Kingdra, then we can just Nile Garbage run them back in the deck if they get KO'd. And it's also stall, so it's also important to have an extra 3 turns if the game runs very, very long. So 2 copies of Energy Stadium, as I previously mentioned. This card is really cool. Again, it's a symmetric effect, but to be honest, I tend to find that I will probably not put this card out like a turn after I've done a Super Energy removal, same turn or the turn after. But it is, again, if your opponent's playing with dark energies, double colorless, metal energies, potion or full heal energies, even those. This card doesn't affect them because this card only affects basics. And it's really cool because we're running 7 basics in this deck and 4 recycling energies that come back to the hand anyway. But this is all about fishing back water energies. And, you can see very quick profit from this deck if you go and computer search or item finder and you just discard 2 water energies and you got this in your hand, just slap it down. Ideally replace your opponent's stadium because that's always a win-win for you, double win for you. And just carry on, getting your basics back from your discard. Now, admittedly, there are some situations where it's obviously just as good for my opponent as it is for me, but then perhaps I will try and focus my double super energy removals even to remove more than 1 a turn, and then they can't get it all back in one go. And then this is definitely a tech. I run 1 copy of the Sprout Tower because I think the 2 most problematic decks, and certainly the well, actually they're both now. I'm thinking about it. I played a lot against Clefable decks, and Clefable decks when they start to copy your Twister attack and deal 50 damage. That's a 2-turn KO for Kingdra. That's a really big problem. If I can make that Twister attack deal 20 damage, um, then immediately I have a much better fighting chance. And obviously the other big one is Chansey, but then Chansey can be battled fairly well with the energy removals, particularly a metal Chansey, because obviously the opponent will have to dump a lot of energy on that Chansey to do something. But if they get a quick setup, and if they can double edge, let's say turn two, well, I would ideally Sprout Tower and then less, and then hopefully um, their chance is only going to deal, rather than 80, deal. Well, if they do it with two DCs, then it will be 50, which is still a little bit better. You can recover from that if you get an 80 damage straight off the bat. Um, it's just difficult to recover from that stuff. But yeah, Sprout Tower is still mainly in there against that Clefable matchup, perhaps Ditto as well, I guess. Um, but yeah, be aware, be wary of the colorless Pokemon because they tend to cause a lot of problems in general. So I got one copy of Sprout Tower here for that very reason. And then down to energies. For recycling energy, I mean, this is just an absolute godsend for this deck. The fact that genetic memory works of one colorless, it's brilliant. We can energy removal for all day, all night. Our opponent, if they try to do it, doesn't matter. I mean, their super energy removals, they're not really gonna hit two targets. So then we're basically working on we almost 2-for-1 our opponent if they want to use a super energy removal, because they have to discard one, plus they use the card itself, and they only get one energy off the Kingdra. So I don't tend to build up towards that Twister attack. Yes, it's there, super expensive, and any competitive deck's gonna run a bunch of energy removals, and that's exactly what we're dodging with Kingdra. Go ahead, energy removal, doesn't matter, recycle, energy is gonna come back in the hand. If we do see a Pokemon Tower, ideally we can either go ahead and replace it if we can, or just be aware that if you use your recycle energies in that case, then they're not gonna come back in your hand, and you've lost them for the whole game, because then we don't have any cards that bring special energies back. Um, but because of that, we have 7 water energies in the deck, and that's also what works really well with the energy stadium, that we can just recover these cards back into our hands, and they can be a very good discard fodder for computer search and item finder. And obviously, because once you get up to a Kingdra, it doesn't actually matter what energy is on Kingdra, but if you need to swing with a Horsey, or you need to swing with a Seadra, then we got enough water energies there to support what we're doing. But again, it's just really cool that we can get these back, and that's why we're not really looking at running any other special energies. Just make sure that we got plenty of water, and 7 really does the job. I sometimes thought about maybe running 8 would be better, but there's so much digging that I haven't really had an issue with, finding energies to start off the ground. Much bigger worry is if you have to start on a Pichu, or perhaps even a Magby, but again, as I said, starting on a Magby is not as bad as starting on a Pichu. So this is my Kingdra deck. Again, it's very much off the shelf, with a couple of minor changes that are being made here. And that's really just down to play style. That's really just down to what decks you normally play against. But another iteration. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this quick deck tech of my Kingdra deck. Up until next time, Bussy and sign out. Peace.